LA Sheriff's Department detective was involved in about 800 or 900 investigations, but this is the one that captured the attention of the entire world in 1985.
The Night Stalker.
The Night Stalker.
Night Stalker.
Someone that will go into a home at night and will kill.
I mean, this whole case is bizarre. Peter Pan is bizarre. What a crazy name for two victims.
Ramirez is telling you it went over the Golden Gate Bridge because he saw the press conference, so he hasn't left yet.
Last time I asked her, why are you crying? And she said, I just was my dad. No, we didn't have any idea where he was at the time. We had people in the bus station because an informant told us that was home to him.
Did they have choppers in the air when he was running?
No.
So this was all in real time. He's running for his life. He's being identified. He's being chased.
Yeah.
And they probably would have killed him. You know, I think you can safely say the last time residents of Los Angeles all agreed about the same thing was 40 years ago, when a sick, sadistic creep by the name of Richard Ramirez was terrorizing streets throughout this county. The body count got up to about 14. He is the Night Stalker. We have the man who tracked him, caught him, and put him away. Welcome, everybody, to a very special episode of One Degree of Scandalous. I'm Tom Zenner. You're watching Tom Zenner Scandal YouTube channel. This is the one and only Cato Kalin, my co-host, One Degree of Scandalous. Cato, we left him hanging last time, didn't we? We left him hanging. If you watch our last episode with...
We left their heart in San Francisco.
We did. So we are diving into
I'm getting laughs from Gil, Tom. I don't know.
Let's bring him in. The man, Gil Carrillo. God, a legend. LA Sheriff's Department detective. Was involved in about 800 or 900 investigations, murder cases in his storied career, but this is the one that captured the attention of the entire world in 1985. Richard Ramirez. Everybody was petrified of him, and for good reason. I mean, the guy was wreaking havoc in LA, randomly killing people, sexually assaulting them, abducting children. It was just a horrible, horrible time here in LA. And we dove into it in the previous episode. And we got up to this point, and we're going to finish it, and then we're going to talk to Gil about his storied career. But, Cato, you remember where we let off, right? With the last murders in San Francisco, Peter Pan. I mean, this whole case is bizarre.
Peter Pan and his wife, yeah.
Peter Pan and his bizarre, what a crazy name for two victims. But it brought the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, up to San Francisco because he was visiting his friend. And he committed a couple more murders up there.
You know, when we're talking to Gil about stuff, do you know what kept going through my mind? Ramirez, how he would often drive everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. And the guy's got no money. You got to be thinking, this car going to break down? What kind of car? Right? You're thinking, how does this guy get around?
Good point.
That he's got no money and gas money. I know he's robbing people, but it's got to be in the back of his mind. If he gets pulled over by a cop, anything could happen. Yeah. So that was like a side note I wanted to ask Gil about that. I've crossed his mind.
And that's interesting because, one thing goes wrong for him and it's over. The gig is up. Yeah. Like you make a mistake and he was able to pull it off, Gil, and we're excited to, finish the story with you here. But that's true about him, like with serial killers. Did he make a lot of mistakes along the way?
No, that's why he kept beating us. He wasn't, he was good at his craft. Mm-hmm. And that's why he beat us. As to how he was being transported, he used stolen vehicles. And I really don't know if he didn't use, like Greyhound, going up to San Francisco if he wanted to do that. And I just don't know.
Right. He's not the guy that's going to jump on a plane, right? He doesn't have the money to do that. So it's going to be bus or steal a car and drive up there. And he committed those two murders in San Francisco. How was the working relationship with SFPD, the San Francisco Police Department? Because I bet there's some guys on that thing that, hey, we want to get them too, right? And you've got to cooperate. And then how much information do you share? Are we in this thing together? He's probably coming back here. So how did the
egos got to be involved.
Definitely egos had to play into it.
They were very easy to work with. They were good guys, Carl Klotz and Frank Falzone. And I remember when we went up there, I've been known to have this infectious gregarious laugh. And I'd been to San Jose or Sacramento the year before, and Carl Klotz, he was in the room first, and we met and we talked. And he said something funny, and I laughed. And he said, because he started out, hey, I know you from someplace. I don't know where. And I said, never worked with you down in L.A. Here I am. He said, no, we never had a case together. And I laughed, and he said, the homicide convention. because they had to escort me out of the room for the luncheon because I couldn't stop laughing.
Laughing at a homicide convention. This has got to be a great opening act.
But
yeah,
And
that's
so-
amazing.
so is your laugh stuck with him?
Yeah, it stuck with him. And then Frank Falzone came in, and he said, "Frank, look at this guy. Remember him?" And he said, "Never seen him before." He said, "No, look good." He says, "I've never seen him before. Never worked with him." And he says, "Watch this." And he says something funny. I start laughing, and he goes, "The homicide convention."
yeah.
And so he remembered. So that broke the ice. So
Sure.
we had a great working relationship. The only thing they did that really upset us, and it wasn't them, because I know what cops do at the swine level. Once again, he showed this to one of either his captain or another executive on the department, because we gave him a flyer with a shoe print on there, with a gun description, with physical, that was not for public consumption. And somehow it made it all the way up to Mayor Feinstein. She called a press conference. We just flew back into L.A. We're going up to our office, and as we're going in, our media section says, "Gil, Frank, you got to come and look at this." And it's her giving a press conference with releasing this information. And Richard will tell us later that the shoes and a gun went over the Golden Gate Bridge. And so
So it went over Ramirez is telling you it went over the Golden Gate Bridge because he saw the press conference. So he hasn't left yet.
So he was still in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And he was serious that he actually ditched the shoes and the gun over
Yes.
the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yes.
Never heard that before. That's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
That's
wow.
really interesting.
That's incredible. What was the similarity with a homicide, Peter Pan and his wife, that made you think that there was a link?
there was a big pentagram.
Oh.
There was a pentagram. There was a carved into a closet door was the pentagram, and the words "Jack the Knife." They were killed, same caliber gun. And so we went up there to take a look at it and meet with those guys and exchange information, see if they had anything that we could use. It was a worthwhile trip.
No question.
I'll tell you in the back of my head, I'm thinking that Ramirez, he's aware of Frank's career, Salerno, but he's also probably aware of all serial killers, Manson, the pentagram. But I'm bet you that he's thinking of the Zodiac killer, because the Zodiac killer would leave little clues like that. And I don't know if he is. This is my
Or Jack the
how
Ripper,
my mind,
right?
yeah,
Jack the Knife.
that I'm just kind of thinking in my head how the Zodiac, drove San Francisco crazy with little notes and hints that maybe he's like doing an homage to. You never know, but he's definitely aware of the Zodiac killer.
Oh, he told me, he says, I can feel. I've got an ego that'll fill this room. I can tell you everything about serial killers from the time the Roman fed the Christians to the lions. He used to. They used to exchange correspondence between him and Ted Bundy. They would write each other.
Oh, are you kidding me?
No,
When he was in prison or before?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's like they're in this club,
sure.
this elite club, and really truly they speak a language unique to themselves.
Sure.
If you think about it, they're both twisted,
Right.
obviously to the nth degree. I can't believe the prisons would allow that interaction, but I guess
You can't
find a
stop
way to
it,
do
you
it.
know.
Okay, so
that's
you
an
needed the
amazing
help
story.
of San Francisco PD, and this is just very dramatic at this point because you and Frank literally go to the airport, you get on the plane, you go to San Francisco, you get to the crime scene. We talked about Laurel Erickson being up there already, and she talked to a neighbor who happened to be a cop, which helped her out. But he went there to visit a friend, and that friend was very pivotal because the San Francisco police could shake him down to finally get a name.
Yes,
And because you knew it as a Richard Mara from the
we
dentist
had Richard
ticket.
Menem. What they did, we knew him as Richard, Ricky, or El Despeinado. That means the uncombed one in Spanish. And they got up there, and out of Armando, the friend, they were able to get a last name out of him, of Ramirez. They then sent that Richard Ramirez name to the Department of Justice in San Francisco. Unfortunately for us, prints were not automated for anything less than felony. You had to have a felony conviction. And so we said, well, hand search misdemeanors. And they come up with 8 Richard Ramirez's, and one of the Richard Ramirez's matched the fingerprints we had.
Wow. So this is tens of thousands of files you had to go
Sure.
through, right?
Yeah.
Because they're hand searching through files, misdemeanor cases to see if they can find the print from the car. right?
Yes.
And then from the murder scene in San Francisco.
This Armando, wasn't there a scene with Armando, and was it you or Frank that you?
No, it was the San Francisco
It was
police
San
officer.
Francisco.
That
Was that one of your
Okay,
friends?
Frank Falzone.
Okay, Frank Falzone.
That's a detective member there.
Do you think he was
Frankie
exaggerating
Falzone.
at all? Because he talked about the fact that he gave him one good
Yeah.
good punch to
Yeah.
get his attention. He was rearing back to really cold cock him.
I bet he's telling the truth.
And he
To
gave up
tell
the
you,
name.
to be honest, and I'll tell the truth.
Okay.
I really don't know one way or another, but I still don't understand why he even said it. That's number one. I'm saying, why would you say something like that?
Right.
Number one, we didn't use any information we got from San Francisco in the case down here, so we didn't gain anything. But had that come out, anything that would have come out of there would have been fruits of the poison tree. Never would have been admitted. That's why,
Oh my God.
it would have.
You would have lost him as a witness.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, because he
Police violence.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, because he was very dramatic and demonstrative describing that
Sure.
in the Netflix. He was proud of it. He was
Yeah.
proud of the fact
And-
that he was rearing back, ready to punch him to get the name, and then he just coughed it up. He spit it out.
The fact remains, I still don't understand, unless, now he's retired, doesn't care.
Right.
Why you'd want to admit something like that.
because it gives a bad name. It
Yeah.
makes
Yeah,
you.
but when those cameras are rolling, sometimes people lose their mind
Yeah.
and make it a little bit more
I
exciting.
don't know. And he was.
Yeah,
he was
as a
good
cop,
friend,
you'd be
yeah.
thinking that's the one thing you don't
Yeah,
think.
as
Yeah.
a cop, if we'd have known about it back then, I'd have gone through I'd have been totally upset.
yeah.
So we've referenced, things that piss you off a little bit. Dianne Feinstein's press conference,
Yes.
pulling the surveillance at the dentist office. I mean, where you guys are dedicating your entire life to this, making so many sacrifices, and then stupid moves by other people, put you back. It's like you take 10 steps forward and 4 steps back. Tell me about the Gil Carrillo temper.
Feinstein is the one that was the straw that broke the camel's back. We saw that coming back in. I told Frank, screw this place. Let's go. Let's go down to Chinatown and have a drink. And this place we used to go to occasionally, not many times, but it was a little place called Yimi Lou's. And you go in there and everybody knew each other in the bar. It was kind of like Cheers. And at least to the bar side, they had a restaurant there that served food. And our captain happened to be in there. And we went in there and we're pouring our hearts out. You got to get the Sherman block. You got to tell them this is bullshit. You got to stop those politicians. You got to do that. You got to get to them.
because what did she say? We'll tell the audience what Feinstein kind of gave.
Feinstein released at her press conference. She released the shoe print.
Right,
She released the guns.
The
She
ballistics.
released the car. Everything.
everything you're not supposed to do. She did.
And I'm sitting here. Why? Why does the public have to know this?
Right.
And so
And he throws his shoes over the Golden Gate Bridge because
it's over. It's over. It's done. And all I can do is have a drink. I'm beyond angry. And the captain said, "I'm out of here." He left, and he called us back about 30 minutes later, and he says, "Okay, stop drinking, get some dinner, and then be back up in the office in another hour and a half." Went up there. Sherman Block, they flew him back. He had been at the hay festival or something out in Lancaster. Excuse
Put a
me.
helicopter up there and flew him back
Yeah, they flew him back so he could hold a press conference.
to time it with the 11 o'clock news or the 10, 11 o'clock
It was
news.
in between. I mean, this is like 9 o'clock
Right.
at night.
So this is a quick decision
Yes.
they had to make. And that part of it was because of your conversation with the lieutenant at the bar.
At the captain, and the captain sold the sheriff, and the sheriff wanted to do this. The aide to the sheriff used to work homicide, and he used to tell us all the time the sheriff really loved police, really loved good police work. He loved talking to veteran cops. And so we went back, he held a press conference, and after the press conference, he said he wanted to see us in his office. We went down there, and he says, "Well, fellas, how'd I do?" And I responded, I just told him, "You've made two tired and weary cops. You put a smile back on their face. And although we're tired, now we can go home, get some rest, and we'll be back out in the morning. We'll give you everything we got."
Yeah, that's amazing. And it was Gates was there, right? You had the
No, this was.
this was just the
this
LA
was
sheriff?
Just the LA sheriff.
Okay. But at this point, as the detective chasing Ramirez, you had his name. You knew that he was just up in San Francisco. Figured he was coming back. How close did you think you were at that
and a
point?
matching fingerprint.
Right.
at that
So, I
time.
mean, the net is closing in, right? I mean, you can't get overconfident, but did you feel like we are days away from this?
A week before his arrest, we still had no idea who he was. We didn't have the fingerprint, and we didn't make the match until the Thursday, Friday before, the day before his arrest. And so a week before his arrest, I told our captain, I said, we'll have him in 2 weeks. And even though we had no idea who he was, I said, we'll have him in 2 weeks. I knew we were getting close. Now he's starting to make mistakes. 2 weeks. And the night before his arrest, the day before his arrest, the captain came in and said, I want to talk to you guys. He says, they're talking about, we positively identified him. We've got thousands of pictures out there now.
Wow.
Before they go out, do you want us to keep this in or should we go public? And told our captain, if it goes public, then it's going to be a chase. It's going to be harder. Once he knows we're after him, right now he doesn't. But once he knows we're after him, it's going to be hard to catch him. But I understand why. They want to release him. He came back up. He said, both of you come into my office. Went into his office, locked the door, and he said, we lost. They're going to release it. And I can say this now because I'm retired. The captain is now deceased. So is Frank retired. He opened up his desk drawer and pulled out a bottle of whiskey. Poured. He says, here's to the two hardest working men I've ever been around.
That's great.
Sounds like a movie, Gil. I mean, that's amazing. It's
We
dramatic.
had a shot. The commander, his boss, who we had words with before, trying to keep track of what we're doing. There's a knock on the door, and he said, who is it? And he says, Bill Alley. And he's now retired. He was a commander. He walked in, and we're not little kids. Okay, you're not supposed to have booze in the office, booze in the building, or booze in you while you're working. And he saw the bottle. He saw our glasses. And, we're, okay, spank us if you got to spank us. Not little kids. We're not going to hide it.
Yeah.
And he looked around. He says, you got another glass?
Yeah. It's
classic,
He's
man.
going to have it and toast you guys.
So we got a shot.
That is so cool. And I'll tell you what, it takes a special person to be a police officer. It takes an even more special person to be a elite detective. And just the validation of him, commenting on your work ethic, validating that, it had to give you that shot of adrenaline. It was like the fourth quarter. It's like the 2-minute warning. Let's go get this guy now.
Yeah.
Right? I'm almost
Yeah.
getting chills thinking about it. And lives are at stake. This is life or death. Right? This is the highest stakes possible.
And-
the whole city's counting on you.
And also, you're probably thinking also that you're this kid who's going to be a cop, and you're having a Salerno you whiskey, and they're paying homage to you. It's sort of like your whole life is right there at that moment, and everybody's having a cocktail with you, a shot, and it's like, I'm living a pretty damn good life.
Oh, I say that now. I don't, I've heard you more than once tonight call me a legend, and I've heard people all over this U.S. refer to me as a legend. And I'm not, I'm just the same old guy I was when I started. And to have these guys come up and say the things they have about me and what I did, what I accomplished. And I really accomplished nothing without the professionals I had working around me and my family to support me.
Yeah, you have
So it was
people
really-
around you that make you better.
Sure, it was really just important. That night, we're in there, and there was a guy that we had been looking for, a guy by the name of Cuba. And Cuba was, we learned, used to run around and be a burglar with Richard.
Is he a communist?
And so, and so
Okay.
we wanted to find Cuba. We had surveillance teams. We had cops out there looking for him. And I get a phone call from LAPD, and they said, "Hey, we're still looking for him. We're out here. We're beating the streets, and we think we've got him. We've got a team following him now." And then I get a call from Griggs and Aguilar, two guys working our bureau. Says, "Hey, what's LAPD doing? Have they found Cuba yet?" And I said, no, we just got called by them. And he says, well, they're not gonna, because we have them in our car.
Oh, that's great.
And it's his interview is much too important. You and Frank got to take it on us. Bring him down. So we brought him down. It's now around midnight. And I told Frank, I said, Frank, let's just go in there and get basic information on him. Let him go. We're both tired. We need to get some sleep. If we're going to keep pushing this thing, we want to be sharp. We don't want to screw this one up. And he agreed.
Could they hold him? Like if you needed, like overnight or something?
No.
Oh, okay.
We had nothing.
Just questioning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we went ahead, and he was volunteering. He didn't care.
Well, yeah.
And so I said, okay, I'll take him home, and I'll drop him off because it's on the way home for me. I said, I'll drop him off. I know what town he lives in. So we get in the car, and I said, before we go home, let's drive the streets. I want you to show me where Richard hangs out at. So we're looking for Richard. Just driving the streets up and down. He hangs here, hangs there. This is what he does. And so I took him home. I got home probably about 3 a.m, and 3:30, went to bed, woke up early, couldn't sleep, got up in the morning, back out on the streets early when I get notified that Richard's been arrested. So it was all good downhill from there.
You know, I the first thing that comes to my mind, I guarantee the people listening and watching our show are thinking, what were the shoes he was wearing? Because if he threw the Avias over...
He changed to a Stadia. It was a bunch of
But you notice
dots.
that as a detective,
Yes.
you look, I mean, you have to look at the feet. Like, what is he wearing?
You know what I noticed during the arrest is he was wearing that Jack Daniels T-shirt.
Yes.
And one of the victims had seen him in that. So he didn't have an extensive wardrobe.
Yeah.
Right? No, so he had that black T-shirt on. Let's get back to the arrest and the dramatic element of that as you're driving around the streets with Cuba. One question for you, Gil. In the middle of this, I know you're working 20-hour days and it's taken over your life. Did you ever think how life-changing this would be? The magnitude of what you were working on? Like, my life will probably not be the same after this once we get him?
No,
Was it
not
just
at all.
boom, clue, connect dots,
No, everything,
Just doing your job.
solve the puzzle?
everything was focused on finding him. That it was just the case.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember my wife calling me up. I called my wife just to see how things are going, and she was at my family's house, and she told me that she had caught my daughter crying in the bedroom. And I asked her, why was she crying? She says, well, that's what I asked her. Why are you crying? And she said, nothing. She says, no, you're crying for me. Why? And she said, I just was my dad were home. She told me this. I said, okay, I got to go. I hung up the phone, and I was so angry because I said, I don't need any more pressure. Now she's telling me this.
Right.
But I understood why she was telling me and that's why I asked for forgiveness and said I was sorry in the end. You know, I don't need this added pressure. So all I was thinking about 24/7 was this case.
Right.
I didn't think future. I didn't think nothing.
Family, nothing. You didn't have
Nothing.
time to. I mean, and it was that important that if you didn't, you
Somebody
may not have caught
in
him.
my family could have been killed.
Did you ever think, okay, you guys are in the media, your names are out, Frank and Gil, everybody knew this was the team tracking Richard Ramirez. He's obviously consuming media coverage. Did you think there was a chance he could be looking for you ever?
Yes. And, when we went down to Mission Viejo, when I came back, I found footprints where they shouldn't be. And I'm saying, no, this ain't right.
Footprints at your house.
at my house.
Wasn't a
Right.
Via, was it?
No.
Okay.
The Vios were already gone.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And they were muddy footprints. This is summer. And so why was somebody stepping over here and walking? There was no reason where I found him at. And so we decided that maybe it's time to get some surveillance on my, keep surveillance on my house and Frank's, making sure everything was okay. And I'm almost positive I can't say for sure if they put surveillance on Frank's house, but I know they did on mine. It will bear out later on. He told deputies at the jail that he knew where I lived. And the house that he hit in Diamond Bar was, like I said, 5 minutes away from where I was residing.
Well, think about it. Back then, it's just maps. If you even have a Hudson
Thomas
map,
Guides.
he may have been
Thomas
looking
Guides.
for you.
Yeah.
Thomas Guide. He may have been looking for you and ended up 2 blocks away. Who knows? You never know. You don't even
So,
want to think about that.
you don't-
When he came back from San Francisco after the Peter Pan and wife murder, Mission Viejo, which is in Orange County, which is
Yes.
completely different, right? He's all over all areas of LA County, but this is Orange County. So he went down the 405 and stopped in Mission Viejo. Was that the last one?
That was the last case
Okay.
for his arrest.
Okay. So when you're driving around with Cuba and you find out he's being arrested, he had gone to Arizona to visit his brother.
I had dumped Cuba off already.
Okay.
Went home, got a little rest, got a couple hours sleep.
Getting home at 3 a.m., right?
Yeah. Did you think we're close? Like this could happen at any
Yes.
time, I guess?
Yes.
Okay.
When they released the picture, you're thinking someone's going to
Right.
see it.
Because that picture was everywhere.
Yeah.
The news, the newspapers, and he's got that distinctive look. There's
Yeah.
no way you're going to miss him.
Oh, there's so many people are saying, I know that guy.
Are
Seeing
you-
the picture,
Sure.
people are going, I know who that is. And they're probably searching. And wherever he was on a bus, they're going to find this guy.
We had more clues. Ex-wives, just don't ever underestimate the scorn of an angry woman. That's my husband. I was married to him. There was a guy who's now deceased, good friend, Willie Wilson, was a deputy homicide investigator. I mean, this guy looked like a Marine DI. And he
Willie
was
Wilson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tough, hardcore, hard-charging cop. And I happened to be in one of the substations when I hear him cussing. And I look at him and I said, you salty old piece of work. What are you cussing about now? And he says, 26 years of working these goddamn murders. He says, and they've got me they got me working as a clue clown. And he reads the information that he had. And this informant was saying, knew it was Mariano Duncan, who used to play for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And when he hit the Pan family up there, the Dodgers were in town, so he knew it was Mariano Duncan. The only problem was the guy was a midget.
Oh, my. Wow.
And so I could understand why Willie was upset.
It's great you can laugh about some of these side stories. I'm shocked. So he goes to Arizona to visit his brother, takes Greyhound.
Yes.
So he goes to
No, he goes to Arizona on a motorcycle, got a citation on the Wednesday before his arrest for driving without a license, without a motorcycle license. And
somebody pulled over the Night Stalker on the 10, basically.
LAPD, right in downtown Los Angeles.
Huh.
They pulled him over. They wrote him a citation, and he told me, he says, you ought to talk to those guys, Gil. He says, there were two cops. He says, one was writing the ticket. The other one was talking to the people on the sidewalk as they were walking by. He says, what they missed, I had a gun in my crotch. They missed it when they pat me down.
Unbelievable.
Richard Ramirez had a gun
Yeah.
in his pants. They pat him down and they didn't find it.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, then
That's not
he
unusual.
wasn't driving with a gun, though.
No.
He had to put that at, however, they didn't see that because you don't drive in a motorcycle seat with a
Right.
gun in your
So
crotch.
he-
You don't want it going off, right?
Off your nuts.
He had it.
Kato.
Well, he did
Thank
have
you,
it. He
forensics
was on a
expert.
motorcycle. That's
Right,
what they
that's
were
what I'm
writing him a ticket for.
No, I'm saying, but he had it at one point while he pulled the gun and put it down his pants without them seeing it because he's not definitely driving.
But
with it.
his picture hadn't been out yet, obviously.
Yeah,
At that
no, it was
point.
a week before.
No, that was
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Okay.
His picture came out Friday.
Okay.
Oh, 2 days before.
He must be thinking, I'm home. I'm getting away with this. He gives all the credit to Satan instead of thank you
Sure.
God, thank you Satan. Piece of crap. But
He's going there, Phoenix, and the motorcycle breaks down. He gets a trucker and makes him a deal. Just give me a lift up into Phoenix, keep the motorcycle. And so that's what he did. He couldn't find his brother, so he jumped on a Greyhound to come back.
Unbelievable.
so he didn't even meet up with his brother.
No.
I'm shocked he came back. But then again, he had no place to stay, I guess, in Phoenix, unless he wanted to just start killing people there.
You know, Netflix does this incredible job, and you're incredible on it. Did Netflix try to reach out to the brother? Is he alive?
They didn't reach out to that brother. They didn't reach out to, I don't know if they did, because I don't know what they were doing. That's.
You know, it'd be interesting to
Right.
find out his perspective. The brother,
Sure.
having the dad beat him up.
We did find out after the documentary dropped. I had a lady reach out and get in touch with me, and she had been molested from the age of 6 to 12. And she had been molested by Richard Ramirez, who was her dad's brother.
Huh. So
Richard
that was his brother then, maybe the one in
But
Arizona.
this one
wasn't this.
this one lived in East LA. If he'd have made it another 2 miles,
Right.
he'd have made it to his brother's
Exactly. And I
house.
heard you say that during the documentary when he was literally running.
Yes.
So the media gets a hold of the photo. It's on the news. It's in the newspapers on Friday.
Yes.
He gets pulled over on Wednesday, 2 days earlier, on his motorcycle, makes it to Phoenix, can't find his brother, so he takes a Greyhound back. So he probably, it wasn't in the Phoenix papers. So you got cops staking out the Greyhound station in downtown LA, in Chinatown or wherever it is down there, right?
It wasn't in China. It was in downtown LA.
Okay, downtown LA. So, but you're thinking maybe he's going to take a bus and leave somewhere, right? Because you figured out that he would use Greyhound. So you're staking out the bus station.
No, we didn't have any idea where he was at the time. We had people in the bus station because an informant told us that was home to him. He'd hang around the bus station.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's where he kept
That was his Skid Row hangout
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Got it. Because he
And
could sleep in there. It's covered or whatever.
That's where he used to score his dope at, all around the bus station.
Huh.
And he told us, but you're going to put cops inside the terminal. He's going to make the cops right away because cops, although they wear dirty clothes, their teeth aren't rotten, their hair is not dirty, they're not smelly. He says he'll make it right away.
Yeah.
And that's true, right? I mean,
yeah.
these guys, they'll look for that, I guess, to see.
I guess they do. I've never been on their side.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
And so he makes it in. He comes in the way the buses come in. The officers that are working stakeout are watching the people coming into the terminal.
Mhm.
He walks in, he sees, man, this ain't right. He goes out the way you come in from the bus, and they weren't watching that. And, you know, you wouldn't expect it because nobody knew that he was going to be coming in on a bus.
So he himself he was thinking, I'm getting some lucky breaks.
But the only difference is his picture's out.
Yeah.
So he's in downtown LA and he thinks, I got to get a car. But what he did is he jumped on a city bus then, didn't he?
Yeah, he went into a liquor store nearby, saw his picture on the front page of the paper,
Yep.
and now it's, holy Jesus, don't fail me now.
Yeah.
He got on a city bus, made it down. One of the passengers was looking at the paper and gave it one of these.
Yeah. He
Right.
goes to the liquor store and the guy, he's going to buy some booze. He goes, I need 2 forms of ID. Here's the paper.
There's the laugh. Kato, well done. You got it out of Gil, man.
Here, is this, can I get some Jack Daniels?
I forgot my driver's license, but will this work?
Yeah.
You may have heard of me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
you were saying then he goes to the bus.
He
now.
gets identified. The
Identified
guy
liquor
gets
store.
out the bus right away. Richard sees him going to a phone booth, getting ready to dial 911. Richard takes the bus down another few blocks, and the gentleman that was on the phone flagged down an employee of the gas company and said, follow that bus, man. The killer's on there. I've ID'd him. And so then they started. That's when his running
This
started.
is just
Literally running.
It's like I'm
know.
feeling
He
this,
runs
like,
a good
chills up
2
my spine.
miles,
Yep.
jumping fences, going through backyards, over the sound walls of the 5 freeway, across the 5 freeway. Eventually ended up in the county area. He's moving east and tries to carjack one car. He doesn't make it. Goes around a block. He's on Hubbard Street. Tries to carjack a lady. She screams, her husband. There in that particular area of county of Los Angeles, it was predominantly a Mexican
Right.
Hispanic neighborhood. Only 2 kinds of Hispanics, the good ones and bad ones. The good ones all have, because of the area, they either have a pipe, a baseball bat, some kind of weapon by the front door, or they have guns. Well, this gentleman was a law-abiding citizen. He had a pipe. And he heard his wife screaming, grabbed the pipe, went outside, knocked him in the head a couple of times. And the neighbors saw what was going on. That's our neighbor, and he's fighting him, and she's screaming, let's go. And they went after him. He made it about 3 houses down the street. But you have to remember, this guy was tired. And so he just quit, sat down. They encircled him, waited for the cops to get there. And the only cop that didn't have a picture in his car, whose last name was also Ramirez, got there and hooked him up. And he was a rookie. And so all he's thinking, this is an easy call. The citizen's holding a felony suspect. Shit, this is a piece of cake. All he takes some information here. He doesn't have to do any work. Just write it up. And that's when he realized, here comes LAPD, because he had just crossed over from the city side into the county. They come over. They've been chasing 911 calls, people jumping fences. And they went up there and said, that's the guy we've been chasing. We've been after him. He's ours. They open up the car. They didn't even give him the courtesy of taking off his handcuffs. That's what they normally do. You take off your handcuffs and put our handcuffs on him. That way they're your handcuffs.
For sheriff's department, yeah.
And they just took him. And the rest of the cops from East LA Station, deputies, they were upset. You just let the biggest arrest of the century. You let them
All
take
the way.
him. Yeah.
Did they have choppers in the air when he was running?
No.
So this was all in real time. He's running for his life. He's being identified. He's being chased.
Yeah.
He's being inserted. And they probably would have killed him.
I was going to say, how close was it? It was the damage?
They didn't kill him.
No, but they probably would have if cops hadn't arrived. Don't you
Or
think?
keep beating him?
Or
No,
was he
They didn't beat him. They didn't do anything.
I
All
thought
they did was
the pipes. Oh, just one person did.
one person,
Okay.
the husband, defending his
Right.
wife.
Okay.
Right.
When he ran, then he just gave up, sat down, and quit. They just encircled him.
Okay.
Weren't going to let him go anyplace.
Wow.
If the bad guys would have got him, they'd have killed him just because he was in their area messing with their people. These were good citizens.
When did you get word that the chase was on? That they were chasing him?
I didn't get word that the chase was on. I got word once he was in custody.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you hightailed it down there, wherever
Yes.
he was, right?
Yes.
Did you meet Frank there?
Frank eventually got there.
Okay. And then you take over. This is your case. So you get to talk to him. Just describe, what the scene was, where he was, and when you pulled in there, and obviously everybody knew you, so you go in there. Was he at an LAPD sheriff's office or LAPD or was he at the sheriff's?
He was at Hollenbeck Station. The place, they were on the second floor in their detective bureau up there. And the name of the lieutenant from robbery homicide was there. Nice guy. He just said, Gil, he's in that room. It's all yours. You call the shots, whatever you want to do. Because I was the only homicide cop there yet. Not even their two guys had shown up yet. And so I said, first off, let's just clear this whole floor. Because it seemed like a party up there. It was loud, a lot of cops.
Right.
And we caught him.
And a crowd outside too, right?
Yeah, they were outside. Well, the crowd hadn't built up that big yet.
Okay.
This was right after his arrest. So we're there probably for a couple of hours at least. And now it's time to go. And then they said, well, you can't go yet. And what do you mean you can't go? Said they got a crowd. We're waiting for more cops to get here. And then and we hear somebody's got a gun out there and wants to shoot him. So we waited, and I mean,
Where's he? Ramirez, is he?
he's locked up inside the station waiting for
Okay,
us.
that's.
We walk him out to the car. I'm in the right front passenger seat. Frank and Leroy Orozco are in the back seat with Richard, and Paul Tippin was driving.
Who's the person that with the famous shot of him wrapped in bandages? Is that done by you guys, or is that, at the incident?
No, that was at the incident. That
Okay,
was,
to wrap
that was
him
there,
up.
yeah. And I just call it a turban.
Yeah.
He had that. The football
They must have
helmet.
jacked him up pretty good though, huh? That
No,
pipe blow?
The pipe. It just cut his head. I
Oh.
mean, he was fine.
I'm surprised the guy didn't take a few more blows or cracks at him.
Yeah, no, they didn't do it. These were nice. These were nice citizens.
Okay.
Had
He just
they
wanted
been
to protect
somebody
his
else-
wife,
yeah.
right? Okay.
And so we got him in there. We started. It seemed like a presidential motorcade. We had motors in front,
Right.
motors in back, black and whites, helicopter
Now that-
following us.
But
making
you're
sure-
in the car with
I'm in the
Ramirez.
car. I'm in the car with Richard.
Salerno's in back seat.
Yeah.
And as we're driving, I remember some Mack tools, big red tool truck. Some lady standing on top, and she pulls open her blouse and she's shaking her breast back and forth. I said, Rich, look, they're doing that for you. And we just went, took him to Men's Central Jail, took him in the back door, inmate reception center, a private, not where most of the inmates go. We opened up another door for us, and we got him in there, and he was left. He was excited because he was we put him in the same cell. Frank told him, he says, you realize that's the same cell that Angelo Bono was in. And he liked it. He got all jazzed.
And was that true?
Yeah.
They put him in the same cell as the Hillside Strangler.
That's amazing because he knows Frank Salerno
Yeah.
cracked that case.
And he studied other serial killers. He probably thought that was a big deal. The VIP lounge
Yeah.
of the jail. Are you thinking of questions in your head as you're driving over there? Because this is your shot. You've been tracking this guy. He's taken over your life. Or does it just instinct and just all your training come into it? And what was the connection between you and him when you first spoke to him?
We walked in, we sat down, and Frank Salerno, first thing, because it was a high-profile case, first thing Frank said was, before we talk to you, let me admonish you your constitutional rights. And he invoked his rights. So
Waved
Frank,
him. Said I'm good?
No, he
Oh.
didn't waive them. He invoked them.
Oh.
And so Frank said, okay, all bets are off. We're out of here. We get up, And he said, wait a minute. He says, what if I have some questions? I said, well, you have questions, but we can't interview you. He said, well, I got questions. And he started talking, and I started talking to him. And so we went through a lot of stuff. He was talking in the third person. He would sit there and say, well, if the Night Stalker would have, might have done this, or the Night Stalker, but he wasn't claiming to be the Night Stalker. He said the Night Stalker would have done this, Night Stalker would have done that. And that's the way it was. At one point in time, it's the only time in the whole case, and just if there's any way you could track a millisecond, I became a little upset. I became frightened. And that's because I did with him what I would do with any suspect. I play with their anxiety level. I want to see take it up, bring it down. I want to see where I can question him to keep his anxiety level down. And I'm talking about his sister. And I'm talking about a relationship between his sister and his father. And Richard had his head on the table sideways with his fist right here. And he starts almost to the point of hyperventilation. He starts going.
Recalling.
Frank starts bumping my leg underneath the table. We never discussed nonverbal communication. This was the first major interview we're doing together. So going through my mind, I'm saying, is he telling me to back off? Or is he telling me, you've got him? Because I thought I had him close to rolling. And he said, I just didn't know if he's telling me to stop and I don't, it's going to be my booty. Frank's going to have a piece of me when we get out of here. If I stop, I feel confident about this time. And I said, I can pick it back up. I don't care. But when he starts doing that, his hands start coming off the table.
So he wasn't cuffed.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't cuffed. And his hands start coming off the table. He's heavy breathing. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, mind you, for a millisecond, I'm sitting there saying, if this piece of crap starts levitating, I'm out of here. I've been shot at, I've been stabbed, I've been in fights, but I ain't never been called upon to fight somebody that's floating around the room, and I'm out of here. And he put his hands on me. I said, hey, Rich, how about you want a break? You hungry? And he said, yeah, he was hungry. So I said, okay, we'll take a break. Just like that. We'll get you something to eat, get you some food in here, we'll be fine. We stepped out, and first thing Frank said, why'd you quit? You had him. I said, well, you never told me what the knee to the side of my leg meant.
Right.
And then he didn't talk much when we went back.
Okay.
You guys, are you in the interrogation room? Do you have your guns holstered? Or is there no guns? Because he's a kind of big, strong-looking dude.
I'm sure we still had guns.
Because
yeah, we
you
take them
never,
out.
you never work because you're not cuffed and.
If we go inside, and I can't say that for sure, but if we're in any locked facility, and then we have to take off our guns and put them in gun lockers. But this was not, it wasn't a custody facility, wasn't a jail. So I'm sure we still had our guns. Right. I would think we still had our guns. There was no reason to take them off.
Yeah, and Ramirez likes you because culturally you're both Hispanic, and and he's kind of like, I can open up with this guy.
And you had to use that to your advantage, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, try to get it out of him. Some of the witnesses or victims that testified in the trial said that they could sense pure evil, in that house when he was attacking them. Could you sense that when you were talking to him, interrogating him, or in the car ride over there? Was there anything palpable about this guy being attached to the devil and just being satanic and evil? And could you feel it?
It was an act.
Nothing.
Really?
Nothing. I don't, people look at him and said, and I've heard you refer to him, he just looked evil. Linda Arthur, who had been around murder scenes and everything else, she says, oh, yeah, you could look at him. He just looked so evil. And there was another witness that said the same thing. Didn't look evil to me. He just looked human and didn't do anything for me.
I think the media, he started believing his own hype about that, so he knew he could kind of toy with them with the Hail Satans and that because people were calling him the devil. So I think he's having his way of having fun in a trial, knowing a camera's there when he says certain things.
Well, there were people in the satanic worship. I always screw up his name because I don't follow him, but LeBay or something like that, that was the leader of the Satan movement here in L.A.
Wow, no, I never heard that.
he had him and some Satan worshipers would go there all dressed in black, very macabre during the
To
trial.
the trial?
Yeah.
They were allowed in the courtroom?
Yeah.
Does he also go by the name Soros?
Yeah.
Hey, I got a laugh out of Gil,
Yeah,
too. Oh, man. And then did you kind of think, is there anything more to tell us about the interrogation, or did you get what you could out of him? Any other
No.
direct contact with him that was unique or something memorable?
No, he said the first time we talked, he told us that we found a way to break it to his mom, that he'd cop out to everything. He asked us if he wanted, what did it take to get the death penalty? And because he wanted to get the death penalty. He said, if I plead guilty, will they give me the death penalty? I said, no, it takes concurrence of counsel.
You won't get the death penalty, but you have dinner with Robert Blake.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So it's just honestly,
Yeah,
it's just a fascinating interrogation with this person. Is it your job to go over, the interrogation, do you go over all the murders of step by step of why did you do this, or tell us how you did this one? Does it matter anymore?
No. Well, the only time we ever really talked about the murders was after his conviction. Because remember, he did invoke, so we couldn't talk to him about the case. And now he's in trial, and you don't want to do anything, mess up the trial.
Right.
So it wasn't until after his conviction that we actually talked about some of the cases.
You know what caught me by surprise was the fact that his dad was abusive, abused him, but his dad played a role in lining up his attorneys and seemed to be involved in his defense.
Well, I don't think it was his dad. His sister had gone to school with one of the attorneys and knew the attorneys. Dad did come out and testify, but what he did was he came out and testified and he lied. He perjured himself.
Wow.
On the stand. Only I know that because I was keeping a book with all newspaper articles related to this case. When he came out to testify, he testified that Richard had been out there from April, or
To El Paso?
he testified that he hadn't seen his son in a long time. And he had seen him at the baptism, and then he changed his opinion and said he was there through June. And when I found an article from the El Paso Gazette or whatever paper they had, and the reporter said that, talked to Dad, and this was the day after his arrest, said that he hadn't seen his son in several months. The last time he saw him was in April at a baptism. So now he's testifying that he had been back there, yet he told the reporter the day after his arrest that he hadn't seen his son in months. So I called up the El Paso Gazette, and they said, he no longer works here. He went to Florida. And I said, do you have any idea where? They said, yeah, he went to Miami. I said, okay, thank you. And I called up information, asked them for the two biggest police departments they had in Miami. First one I called, I said, please don't think I'm nuts. I'm a detective from Los Angeles. I'm looking for this reporter. And do you have any idea? Have you ever heard of him? He says, yeah, he's here right now. You want to talk to him?
Oh, my God.
And you take luck over skill any day. So that guy got on there, and I said, you remember, he's testifying, you remember taking the story? He said, oh, yeah. That's one I never forget. I said, that's the way it went down. He said, that's the way it went down. I said, would you like to vacation in L.A.? And we'll fly you out here and give you a few days. And he came out to testify and blew the father right out of the water.
Right. His testimony. Did he get any jail time for that? Perjury or penalty?
No, perjury's really hard to tell. You have to show that there's intent. And the father could have said, I made a mistake. I forgot.
Yeah. Did you think that the circus was in town when the trial started? Did you think this is going to be crazy, right? And then talk a little bit about the groupies and his defense team, who was a little amateurish at times.
The groupies were there. There were different people there every day. There was one girl that was there during the preliminary hearing. Her name was Bernadette. She was a Filipino gal. She was there every day. And I asked Richard eventually, after trial, whatever happened to Bernadette? He said, well, she kept trying to talk me back into Christianity. And he said, eventually, I talked her into doing something else. So the last time I talked to her, she was into porno. So he had an influence on her. So the groupies didn't bother. They were expected. Nothing really exciting.
Yeah.
You know, trial's boring
How often did you go?
every day.
143 witnesses, right?
I don't remember.
No,
how
I think
many
that's the
there were.
number. Like 100, a lot in the triple digits. And then the bizarre story of one of the jurors being murdered during the trial.
Yes.
That had to be
Very nice lady, African American lady. She was there, sweet. And then one day we go to court and said she's been killed. And the concern was, did somebody on Richard's side have her killed? Was she whacked? What was going on? And as it turned out, it had nothing to do. It was not related to the case at all. So they replaced her with the gal that eventually fell in love with Richard. She liked him. And I remember one holiday, maybe it was Valentine's Day, she baked a bunch of cookies or cupcakes and took them into the defense team, the people working the trial. Gave them to everybody except for the prosecution side.
Well, she got to get kicked off the jury.
Come on, that's
then.
generally
No,
frowned
she-
upon,
no.
isn't
You
it?
can't do that.
No, she didn't get kicked off. Matter of fact, she voted for his guilt. She voted for the death penalty. Then she became a private investigator. So she,
It's crazier and crazier.
and she would have access to him. You know,
Oh, wow.
Who did the?
She probably figured if I could keep him in prison, I can go see him.
Yeah,
exactly.
I know
Because
Richard.
I've been told, and I can't. It's hearsay. I was told that she would go up there and take care of business with him.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. A woman on the jury gets murdered. She replaces her as an alternate, has a relationship with him, bakes cookies for everybody.
So how do they actually have consensual? Is there a room they get to go into?
I've never been to that side of San Quentin. I went to San Quentin. I've been to San Quentin once on a case. I went up there, and unless I had to, I never wanted to go back because that's I've been in other prisons, but that's the only prison where they let you know right up front. This is no hostage policy. We will not bargain for you if they take you hostage. If you hear the siren or you hear shots, it just get down on the ground or get up against the wall. You know, and I said,
I'm good.
That doesn't make me want to go in there. You know?
Yeah.
The juror that got murdered. Who were the detectives on that case?
I don't even believe it was ours. I think it was LAPD's.
Okay.
Wow, this is just.
So was it required that you go to the trial every single day? Because that's over a year.
You weren't required. I don't know. There's no policy or anything that you said you had to go.
Okay.
But I wanted to be there because you don't know if they're going to say something that I might be able to rebut.
Right.
And I wanted to be there because if we had Spanish-speaking witnesses, I spoke the language, and I've caught interpreters misinterpreting. And so I wanted to be there for every aspect. So I was there every day we were in trial, never missed a day.
Yeah.
Did you actually talk to him?
Not during trial at all.
Yeah.
But he would show up some days in sunglasses. He'd be dressed up. He'd play with the crowd, right? I would imagine he'd probably
He knew.
interact with the jury. He seemed to really enjoy the spotlight, right?
Oh, he
At
did.
that point.
Oh, he's a showman.
And he knew
Oh,
his
yeah.
days were numbered, so he was
Serial
going to live it up.
When after his conviction, he says, no big deal. It always went with the territory. They sentenced him to death. He said, right now, he says, I'm on my way to Disneyland.
Jesus.
Incredible. So he gets the death penalty and then gets cancer and actually dies in prison. But would you have gone to his execution?
Well, yes. And there's only one reason why. Because he asked Frank Salerno first. He said, hey, you going to go to my execution? And Salerno's response was, you're damn right I am. And he said, what about you, Gil? I said, I don't know, Rich. You know, I've seen enough death between war and between what I saw out on the streets. I said, death doesn't turn me on. If you want me to go, I'll go. If you don't, I don't see any big reason. And he says, well, I'd like you there. I said, okay, you want me there? I'll be there. So I gave him my word. I'll be there. Fortunately for me, he died before.
But that's pretty crazy. Were you kind of playing with him a little bit? Like that give and take right there?
No,
Okay.
that was the truth. That was the
Okay.
way. I've never lied to Richard, and
Yeah.
I don't lie to anybody.
Yeah. It's incredible. So then he dies in, when was it? 2013, I think, right?
It was June 7th, 2013.
Yep. Did you know he had cancer? Did you just find out that he died and that was the end of it?
I was at my grandson's junior high school graduation going to high school, and my daughter, who's a social butterfly, She says, Dad. I said, what? She says, Richard just died in prison. And I said, I don't care. I'm here for my grandson. Don't bother me with that shit. And so I went ahead after his graduation. Then I looked down at my phone, and I had at least 40 messages on there from
Media.
By the time I got home, I had 7, 9, all the stations were
sure.
there. They were all there to interview
Laurel
me.
Erickson.
No, she didn't show.
Was she wearing the same dress? No. Dude, when he dies of cancer, while you're in prison, a person is in prison, and he obviously cancer. They know he's got cancer. Do they actually give medical treatment to
They'd have to give him
inmates?
medical treatment if he. My understanding was he was refusing it. Didn't want anything.
Yeah, he thought that's his destiny.
Yeah, they take care of prisoners if they have to.
He was probably disappointed he died that way because he considers himself a serial killer and they get electrocuted or, however they do it in California. But yeah, that was kind of a weird way for him to eventually go out. The other, thing about this story, this case, your life had to change because when you're on the front page of the newspaper, you're in the news, 10 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 11 o'clock, people know who you are. And you were still young. You're in your mid-30s. So you have the rest of your career as Gil Carrillo, the guy with Frank who took down the Night Stalker. So how did that change the trajectory of your career? Were you known on every crime scene you went the rest of your career? It had to be kind of bizarre.
It took, as far as my career goes, while still working homicide, it took a while because there were people in the Bureau that thought Frank came in and saved the day. Frank was the reason the case was solved. And I'll be the first to admit that without him, it would have been extremely difficult. But his experience brought with it a world wealth of knowledge. So it took a while before people came on. And I remember getting a trainee up there after Frank was gone. And it was a brand new sergeant. And he got up there. And we got a case at the Chinese Church for Christ, and it was a double homicide. His first case, we go out there, and we solved it. We solved it over the weekend, and went and picked him up on Sunday. He was down in San Diego, went and picked him up. Took Sheriff's Air down there, picked him up, brought him back, wrote it all up, and by Tuesday, I filed the case. And I remember investigator who was an older guy, but I'd been there longer than him, but he was just older. And he looked at me, he says, he says, that's pretty good, Gil. He says, I didn't think that you could do that good without Frank. And I said, I guess I can. So people were still giving Frank, and so things that, as time went on, now I retired in 2009. This is 1985. It was 1989 when we convicted him. Well, Frank leaves the department in the 90s, and by this time, now I've got a reputation for being good and knowledgeable, and now they're coming to me,
Right.
and the executives are calling me in sometimes. Hey, we've got a question for you about this case. Would you review it and look at it? And so I was getting a little more recognition, but I was still having so much fun. It's hard to take me serious a lot of times.
So you're 2009, you retire. So what does Gil do? And by the way, are you still in contact? You still talk with Frank? And what do you do now? I mean, as far as just enjoying time with Pearl?
Well, that's tough to say, enjoying time with my wife.
She's still holding a grudge?
She's still, no, she's all right. She's the rock. She's the wind beneath my wings, believe me. She's the glue that has kept everybody together.
Yeah.
And we've been married. This December will be 55 years. So.
What anniversary is 55? It's linoleum. Anyways.
Careful, you get a cop drop spit at you.
That's great. I love it.
People think it's a pentagram.
It's hysterical.
That's
55 years.
That's good.
You can tell Pearl that one.
I will tell her that.
So and then
I did a stint as the interim chief of police for city of San Fernando. I then went out. There've been all kinds of company. People calling up wanting
Right.
I call them docudramas, where they have people act, and then they do an interview with you, and they go over here and
That's great, though.
and did that, and then after this, and I was still doing lecturing, crime scene interviews and interrogations. They wanted that, but the night that Tiller Russell called me up, and he just said, "Okay, it's going to drop tonight, Netflix documentary."
Right.
I said, "Okay." He said, "Enjoy the ride." And I said, "What do you mean enjoy the ride?" He says, "I'll talk to you in about a week or two." And that was it. And, I want to say, "Okay, Sensei."
Yeah, right. What does that
Disappear.
mean, right?
And so,
Because he knows it's going to be great.
and
Well, he
we-
knows it's going to change your life.
my wife and I watched it together. And if anybody's seen it, knows all I wanted to do in life was make my dad proud.
Mm-hmm.
And the night that we got the conviction, I came home and I got in bed and I just cried. And my wife never said anything. She put her arm around me and she just said, "It's okay. Your dad's with you."
Yeah.
And so when we watched this thing, I told him, I said, I loved it. I said, it made me cry. It made me laugh. And I know my dad was proud of me because subliminally, you got that point across. And the picture of my dad and myself when I'm about 5 years old, I said, it killed me. And he says, during editing, I turned on the lights and stopped it and looked around. Everybody in the room was crying. I knew we had a winner then.
Yep.
And so enjoy the ride means I've since that time spoken all over the U.S. I just come back from San Antonio. I was in Austin a few years ago. They called me up at the last minute. Would I speak at CrimeCon? And I said, okay, it was right after the pandemic. It was just finishing with the COVID thing. And I was last minute fill-in for somebody. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I went, 1,500 attendees. So I spoke. I come back. Following year I was in Vegas. And they said, hey, we'd like you to come back and speak, this time early.
Correct.
And I said, okay, what do you want me to speak on this year? I said, same thing you did last time. I said, wait a minute, the people have already seen me talk about that. And they said, there were 1,500 people there. We've already sold 5,000 tickets to this one.
That's great.
And then they started publicizing it. And I said, hey, you keep sending me these, on social media, guess who's going to be there? I said, did you just leave me off? He says, oh, no, we're saving you for the last. And then they blasted it out that I was going to be there. And so speaking there, I've spoken all over this U.S. I just come back from San Antonio. I'll be going to Indianapolis here next month.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to go to North Carolina, and I cancel. I said, no, I won't go. They wanted me to cut back on for what they wanted. It takes 4 hours to put out. And there we go from crime scene to crime scene with pictures and discussions. And they wanted me to cut it back to 2. I said, no, my name goes attached to it, and I'm not going to give you, it's not fair to them, it's not fair to me.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to North Carolina in October where they're going to give me the allotted time that I've talked to. At first I said yes, then I turned down a trip. They asked me to go to Prague, Czechoslovakia, and I just didn't feel like my ego was not that big. I don't need a 13-hour
Right.
ride over there. And I said, I'll watch it on the Discovery Channel. So I've lectured in Panama, Mexico. I mean, this stuff is really just there. I'm waiting now. There's a movie, and they're telling me they're going to have the premiere. He just told me this yesterday. Probably in May. It's going to be called Hubbard Street, and it's not a real big production company. It's a low budget movie, minimal budget. And I said, well, I can't, they said, would you do a cameo for us? So I said, okay, I'll do a cameo. Then they send me they call a location chart where we're supposed to show up. And I looked, and there's a lot of speaking in there for me.
A lot of lines.
Call
huh?
sheet, you got in the script.
A call sheet.
Yeah.
A call sheet. So, and I called him back. I said, hey, I thought this was going to be a cameo. And you got me down here with enough speaking to shit. I'll get Hollywood Walk of Fame. They'll
Get
put
your
a star
SAG
out
card.
there.
Yeah.
And so I went down there and I said, I can't do this because SAG, I found out from before, I can go ahead. They'll allow you to do 2, maybe 3 without getting a SAG card. But if you, other than that, then they won't let you on a set. And at that time, it was costing $2,500 to join SAG, and then you had a yearly
Dues.
yearly
Yeah.
dues. So I just said, I can't talk. And he says, no, you can in this one because we're under some kind of minimum budget things.
Non-union, probably. Mhm.
And so we'll pay you union scale, but it's a non-union vote. And it's loosely based on the Night Stalker. So it's really a totally Hispanic movie about lowriders versus cholos and the fighting that goes on in the streets of, they call it Hubbard Street because in the background you see 2 guys talking. One's a pastor, and then there's me, and we're both 2 old cholos that grew up on the streets, but now I'm just a straight guy. He became a pastor. We used to run the streets bad. Now he's a pastor, and so, but in the background you see the news, on the TV, Night Stalker strikes again.
Sure.
They show the newspaper right there. Night Stalker hits again.
Right.
And so the Night Stalker evenally gets arrested.
Is the
Well, it's
theme
Hubbard
throughout
Street
the-
too, right?
Yeah,
That's where they
Hubbard
got
Street,
him.
That's where they got
That's
him.
really interesting. By the
So-
way, did you know? A little bit of news here. Cato's going to be killed by aliens in a movie that he's going to shoot in May
No, it's
next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
April. Well, we don't want to date.
Okay,
but
it is really
yeah.
graphic. They're going to take him out in a very violent way.
Yes. But the first one, it's Desert Fiends 2, but Desert Fiends 1 got a 7.4 rating. And I guess I'm seeing all the clips that how many people in the people that watch horror films love this whole film, this theme that they have. So I'm like, wow, this is great. And I get to, I love Eric Roberts and he's in it, an Academy Award winner. So come on.
Gil, don't you
good.
think the aliens would be laughing their ass off as they killed Cato Kalin violently?
Yeah, we might have to actually have
Well, they're
Gil work the case if I do.
without making it anticlimactic. I will tell you that there's poetic justice because I get to take part as a civilian in his arrest.
Lead pipe? Get a whack?
Close.
TBD, to be
Close.
determined. All right.
Close.
Okay. Well, that's an awesome way to include you in. And that was what I was thinking too. Maybe you could be part of the mob, right? Get a little shot at him. That would be hilarious.
And Tom and I, after this podcast, Jed, are going to say the same thing. Enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
One random question.
Yes,
Did
sir.
you get paid OT? Because you worked around the clock for months.
It was, I don't care. Time's up. I'm gone. That was the commander that I told you got inflicted in there. They now have a maximum, I think, of 90, well, at least then, they had 93 or 95 hours maxed out. You couldn't get paid more than that because they were working too much.
Yeah.
And we at Homicide Bureau, be lucky if we got 20 hours. We worked an awful lot, but we weren't doing it for the money. We were doing it because, got to get these bad guys. And guys working homicide, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle. And so we'd be willing to work it.
Yeah.
Nobody's questioning it. Well, commander came in one day and said, Gil, how you guys carrying your time? I said, what do you mean carrying our time? He said, yeah, well, you guys are working an awful lot of hours. What do you do? What are you doing? He says, because we can't work that because of FSLA, with Federal Standard Labor Act. And I said, what we do on our own time is nobody's business. We go into a bar or we go into a restaurant and we stock and we do stuff. We decide to stop by and visit somebody. That's on us. We're not complaining. We're not. He said, well, no, it can't be like that. He says, you realize if FSLA finds out, they will fine us 3 times the amount that we owe you. And I said, okay. And he says, not only that, if you get a divorce and your wife decides to tell the public how much you're working and we're not getting paid for it, that could lead to big problems. And I said, well, God damn it, why don't you pay us in? And so he knew that I was getting mad. He said, I'm going to go talk to the captain. So he went to talk to my boss. Well, they finally came out, and the captain came out and told us, he says, okay, you can work 40 hours this month. And then it was 50 hours this month. The max they gave us was 75. And no complaint. I was happy. I had never made that kind of money before. And I told Frank one, I said, I've been keeping track of time just for shits and giggles.
Right.
And I think we're up to 140 hours, and that's an awful lot of time. And so we didn't get paid for all of it. Now today's guys, they want to get paid for everything, and God bless them, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah. Wow. Do you think we covered everything, Cato? I think we did.
Yeah,
I think we did. Man.
Amazed.
We
I think
nailed it.
these episodes are fascinating. Really
Gil,
are
it's
fascinating.
been awesome. Really, really appreciate it.
And if people want to follow you on Instagram,
I'm on Instagram.
tell everybody how to follow you. They're going to want to follow you after a show.
Real Gil Carrillo.
Oh, yeah. All right. This is awesome. This wrapped up the episode and the story about chasing down, capturing, arresting, convicting Richard Ramirez. Go watch the previous episode if you missed it. If you're watching this live, go back and watch the previous one where we lay out the whole story there, Gil. Wow. That was phenomenal. We thank you. Thank you for coming in, being in
you.
Loved
studio.
it, my friend. Loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Listen to this. This is one of the, like I said last time too, this is the one you want to watch a few times and listen a few times because you'll pick up more details from the man who was there. Gil Carrillo, LA Sheriff's detective, brought down the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. By the way, do you know anything about citizens' arrests?
What do you
Well, I
want to
mean,
know?
Zeus.
Wait a
What,
minute.
okay, Cato. I was changing right between episodes, and I put this on. Zeus, stop admiring my physique. Give me a
Don't ever
little
change.
freaking privacy as I'm changing. For God's sake, I'm sure you were admiring it, but Gil, is there anything I can do?
No. For looking, you can't.
Well, at least you were a witness. You were a witness.
As long as I don't touch, right?
Yeah, as long as you don't
I'm
touch
sure
it.
you wanted to.
Hey, don't bring me into that shit. I don't
All
want
right.
to. I don't
Okay,
be a
Gil,
part
I
of
may
it.
be calling you about this. Cato, what you up to, man? Other than getting killed by aliens, you good?
Yeah, got some friends coming to town. It's going to be fun.
Great. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I think
Well,
you
they
will.
were friends. He said friends.
friends.
Hey, by the way, Gil, can we have a glass of wine sometime? I would love to have
I'd love to.
I would love to have a nice little Cabernet with you.
I'd love
that would be
to.
enjoyable. Hear some more stories, which would be awesome.
And I actually would love to. I don't know if you're going to be. I want to be part of CrimeCon. I think.
yeah, it's coming up in
I
Denver
really
this year
want to
in
do
September.
I think I would have a fascinating story to get an
I have.
agency for that.
If you look them up on the internet, CrimeCon.
Yeah.
Last time I did it was in Las Vegas for them, and it was funny because I came back from Vegas, and I believe it's sponsored by A&E. It's a really professional job the way they do things.
Oh yeah, it's a full
Yeah,
weekend.
Yeah,
And-
it's like a TV show.
It's
you're
in
on.
Denver
so-
this year in September.
They sent me a copy of the video of me, and when I got done speaking the night before, I was having dinner and a glass of wine. And some attendees came in and said, "Do you mind if we join?" I said, "No, come on." We sat there, we drank wine, we talked, and they said, "What are you talking about tomorrow?" I said, "Same thing I did last year." And they said, "What did you talk about last year?" I said, "I don't know, I don't remember." And they said, "Oh, you got your notes in your room? You gonna prepare?" I said, "Nah, I'll just get up there and talk." So I did. And at the end of when I got done talking, they gave me a standing ovation. And I said, "Oh shit, hold on." And I got my phone. I said, "Let me film this."
Yeah.
And I started going like this, filming them. I said, "This doesn't happen." And I want my wife to see it.
Right on.
So I got this video professionally done. I said, "Dear, you want to see what I do?" Because she's an introvert. She doesn't like to go to any of this stuff with me and doesn't like to mix and mingle. And so I said, "You want to see what I do?" She says, "Yeah." So I showed it to her. I said, "What do you think?" She says, "Not bad, but why do you have to make fun of me?"
Hey, Pearl, I'm a star, man. Look at this. In Vegas, standing ovation. That's awesome. You deserve it. That is classic. And you made your dad proud. I know you did. You made your wife proud, your kids proud, and the whole city of Los Angeles. Thanks you, Gil. So
Thanks
thank
again.
you so much.
Thank you.
If there's any other time you want to come here and just shoot the breeze with me and Cato, we'd love to have you. Okay, anytime.
You throw out the invite and I'll return.
All right.
right.
And we'll have a nice little couple bottles of wine right here. All right.
Guaranteed,
And we'll enjoy it.
I don't want to come down here on my own. They'll think I'm a groupie.
All right.
love
Hey,
Gil.
thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's load up the comments. What you thought of Gil Carrillo. Just an amazing performance in these two episodes. Master storyteller, as I've said. So thanks, Cato. Great job.
Always.
Gil, pleasure seeing you. Zeus,
Pound.
decent.
Thank you.
Not bad.
Peace out, guys.
Not bad. For this amazing team here, I'm Tom Zenner. Thanks for watching. Make sure you follow us on social media, and we will see you very, very soon.